I can just, you know, plunge it into that. And
okay. So I'm watching you live, Mark. Notice my paste iron holder here. How it has this is a paste sponge. Okay. I used to be I am. I'm a big wiper. Now, I'm a big fan of the brass wool as well. I use the heck out of these things. Actually, this brass wool sponge, of course, is not meant to be in a paste stand, but I have so many stands. I've got 6 of them that go across the bench over there where all these things are in line. But I have holders and a couple of them for tips, and then these two, I actually have the cleaning parts. So I have the sponge in one, and the brass wool sponge in the other. Now, when my tip gets really nasty, usually it's not going to happen when I have the small tips. Usually that's only when I have the really big chisel tips when I'm working on tube type equipment, where I may even have the temperature turned up some more, and stuff really, really gets baked onto this tip. Then I'll use the brass wool. I'd say 90-95% of the time, this is what I use. The whole trick that I've found to using these, and actually these paces work really, really well. Now, I did make one modification to the sponge. I do it to all of the sponges. The center comes out, and that's actually, you're not supposed to wipe your tip across the sponge. It took me a while to figure this out, just by trial and error. But that hole's there for a reason. It's meant for you to stick the tip down in there, and you'll notice my sponge is only dirty right here, just that one little corner. That's because when I reach over, when I'm soldering, I just reach over and I give it kind of a twist. I wipe one side and then the other side, just 2 strokes. But I only do it on this little edge right here. And my tips, I know you're talking about tip durability. Tips last me a really, really long time. I can't even imagine how many. God, there are most weeks probably well over 1,000. I mean, probably a few thousand if you think about it. Especially if I do a lot of recaps in a week, I could probably do 2,000 solder joints in a week easily. But like I say, what I do is when I get these sponges, you take the center out. That's meant to come out, and then what I do is. You see that? There's a bevel. I actually just take a razor blade, my razor knife, reach over here and grab it. I take a razor knife when it's still dry and brand new, when it's still compressed where it's really easy to do that, and I just cut a bevel across there. What I'm doing is, because it works, you know, if you stick it in like that where it's the flat edge, it works, but it tends to spray out a lot more, and that's the problem. I think that might be what you're talking about, messy. It tends to shoot solder blobs all over the place. If you do it like this, if you cut this backside out, and this thing is probably 5-6 months old. So I mean, it's lasted over half a year, and you can see it's damn near like new. Really, all I'd need to do if this edge ever starts to get bedraggled is just cut out this side at that bevel, and I just turn the sponge around, and I'll get another. So you know, a sponge lasts me over a year, as much soldering as I do. But you see how all this, the solder dross collects down in a little tray down here, and then I just take my vacuum cleaner every once in a while when it starts to get full and suck it out. Now don't worry, I'm not blowing lid particles all over the atmosphere. That's a HEPA vacuum. But anyhow, so how that little guy works, like I say, just like that. That's it. And my tips... This tip's probably a year old or more. Still looks like new. Now, actually, I can run my fingernail across that and feel how it steps down right there. There's a step. Ooh, fingernail's starting to get hot. Yeah, actually burned a spot into it. But anyhow, yeah, because it's on. Right there at the where you actually tin the tip, you can tell it has eroded in a little bit. But you can see that's damn near like new. Still clearly defined. It's evenly, as it's eroded, but it's happened evenly. I mean, if you didn't know it wasn't a new, that this was, dark back here gives it away, but otherwise you'd think that was a brand new tip. But yeah, like I said, I actually, after I started using the paste sponges, I never liked them either, wiping across, shit spraying all over the place. But like I say, once I discovered that if I back cut a bevel onto that so it tapers back in, when you wipe it, it deflects all the solder down into that little holder. I get a little bit up here occasionally, you know, it splatters up underneath just a little bit, but I'd say 99 point something % of it always makes it down into that reservoir down in there. Another trick for other people if you're watching this, when you use sponges, don't over soak them. You shouldn't be able to wring water out of it. I will moisten mine several times a day. I don't just go in there, soggy it up, and where it's, you know, the water you can just squeeze out of it and expect that to last all day. It's lightly dampened. If I come back in a few hours, that thing will be dry. It's just enough, and what I do is just have a bottle of steam distilled water, and I never actually apply water to the front here. I only ever apply just a little bit, about like that. That's it. Just to the back side, and I allow it to soak up through the sides here. So I can touch it with my finger. You can see it's not wet. So it's just lightly dampened. So for starters, that's not shocking the tip really bad. I know some people say they don't like sponges for that reason because it's shocking the tip. You'll get micro fractures. Well, like I say, this tip's lasted God knows how many tens of thousands of solder connections I've done with that using that sponge. Like I say, you can see there's no sizzle when I'm wiping that. You can see a little bit of steam because, like I say, it's damp, but it's not damp to the point where you can actually hear it sizzle. If I lay the tip on there, there's no sound. Other than you, Mark, in the video. But, yeah, like I said, I've just come to, I actually prefer that. And for other people not watching, when you're done cleaning your tip before you put it back in the rack, make sure you always tin it. The solder makes a coating on your tip, and that's why tips last so long. You should never leave a tip bare. You clean that tip off and put it back in a holder. If you forget to turn this iron off, air gets on there, oxidizes the tip, and that's what can really kill your tip. But yeah, like I say, that's the paste sponge actually for me works great.